Thank you. Good afternoon and welcome to our City Council budget hearings for today. Welcome everybody on CityLink and here in Carnegie Town Hall. We have 7 agenda items today. Before we get into that, if you're watching live today, we just had our ribbon cutting for Solberg Avenue overpass. It was a very warm ribbon cutting out there, attended by well over 100 people, and it was great to see that new way of getting around Sioux Falls opened up today, open to the public. So if you get a chance, take Solberg Avenue. Today, our first person presenting will be Darren Smith with Community Development. Darren.
Good afternoon. Darren Smith, Director of Community Development. Is that better? Yes. Okay. Good afternoon. Darren Smith, Director of Community Development. Thank you for having us here today. We're anxious to present our proposed 2014 budget. And Council Vice Chair Karski, we are going to do things a little differently maybe than some of the other departments in that we have one person from each of our divisions who will be presenting their own area. So we have 3 divisions: affordable housing, economic development, and public parking. And someone from each of those areas will actually be making the presentations, but we'll be brief and then we'll look forward to the questions. So with that, I'm going to introduce Al Ruchter, who's in our affordable housing division, and he will make the budget presentation.
Thank you, everyone. For 2014, the Affordable Housing Division is proposing to invest $3.3 million in our different affordable housing programs, which encompass those groups of programs listed there. The Neighborhood Revitalization Program, which I think a lot of you are familiar with, and we'll get into that in a little bit. Our housing rehab programs, that would include our single-family housing rehab program, rental rehabilitation program, mobile home repair programs, some accessibility modification programs we have. Then home buyers assistance, our down payment assistance program. We have some rental assistance programs we're going to talk about, and then our community outreach is kind of a catch-all. Deals with programs we do with our community partners such as Sioux Falls Housing, Interlakes Community Actions, agencies like that. This slide shows the projected revenues for 2014 and the source of those revenues. As you can see, about 50% of the funding would be from the federal government through the Department of Housing and Urban Development. We have a couple large grants we receive money from, those being the Community Development Block Grant and the Home Investment Partnerships Program grants, or CDBG and Home as they're listed there. Those grants, for 2014, we are projecting the CDBG grant to be down about 10% from 2012 and the home grant to be relatively the same or flat. I'm comparing those to 12 because our 13 grants we did not receive till the middle of July, so we were well into our budget process before we knew what amounts we were dealing with for this year. Then another big part of that federal piece to the puzzle is our program income, which are repayments on loans we have out there with existing homeowners who've received loans years ago. They generally have deferred loans or repayment loans, so that loan income helps fund our programs going forward. The general fund consists of about 29% of the budget. The revolving construction fund is used for our neighborhood revitalization program. That's one where our partner agency, Affordable Housing Solutions, acquires properties, usually tears down the dilapidated structure on the site, and then we use this revolving construction fund to pay to construct a new house and sell it to a low-income household. And then when the house is sold, the money goes back into that revolving fund. And then about 5% each from contributions from outside sources and miscellaneous. The contributions would be like non-government grants or developer fees. The long-term state loan listed under miscellaneous, that is used for our rental rehab program. The bottom part of the slide there, your attention might be caught there by the spike in the program income number for 2012, and then there's a corresponding decrease in the intergovernmental, or that's actually the federal grants we receive. HUD just requires us to spend the program income on hand before we draw from the grants. So we had that spike in program income, and then as a result, the grants looked like they were down, but just the amount drawn from the grants was down that year. So of that 3.3 million we mentioned, 700,000 or so is personnel costs. The other 2.6 million is operating expenses, and those are dollars that go directly to low-income members of our community for different housing or service programs. There's a slight decline there in that operating line. You'll see the reason for that. Maybe I'll skip to the next slide. In the middle of this slide, you'll see a true-up number. The single-family housing rehab program and the rental rehab program, we're going to decrease our budgets for 14 compared to 13. Each of those programs was maybe budgeted high in 13 for different circumstances. The single-family rehab, we had demand for that program was very high in 2010 and 11, so then in early 12 when we were creating the budget, we thought that demand would continue. It's actually tailed off, so we're adjusting for that. And then the rental rehab, same thing when we were budgeting for 13 in early 2012. That program was brand new. We didn't know maybe what to expect or what kind of demand we would have. And then also when we did do projects, we thought maybe an average project cost would be higher. So we're kind of truing that up here. Having said that, this slide shows where we started with the 13 budget and how we got to 14's budget. There was that true up in the middle there. There's the personnel cost, the inflationary rate, and that is just an inflationary number we plug in for the programs where we're doing construction, like the single-family rehab program or the other rehab programs or the neighborhood revitalization. Construction costs are going up, so we've got a number in there to account for that. The next line there, the 82,000, maybe don't be misled by that negative there. That's mostly the home buyers assistance program. We are going to restructure or retool that program. We feel maybe we're not reaching the clientele we want to reach with that. We want to reach folks who have a steady job, steady income, maybe just need a little boost of help with the down payment and closing costs, but once they get into the house, we want to make sure they're going to be able to stay there. So we're going to refocus the program a little bit, and that might end up with us serving fewer households, but we think the households we do serve will be better homeowners long term. They'll be able to stay in their house. And then the other program changes, again, that community outreach umbrella. That's some other programs are actually increasing within there, like our Bright Futures program, Heartland House. There's a financial literacy program through consumer credit counseling that's going to increase its outreach a little bit. So some of the other programs are increasing. It's just that home buyer program decrease results in an overall negative number there. And then the big one we want to talk about is this last thing here is our multifamily housing initiative or large affordable housing project. We haven't done one of those for a few years. We'd like to get back into that. There's a long waiting list at Sioux Falls Housing. About 3,700 people as of May of this year. So we're proposing to do a public-private partnership with probably a local developer. We don't really know too much about this yet, but that's our plan at this point. As a result of the housing study done in 2010, we're going to try to reach the lowest income households, those with incomes at 30 or 40% of median family income. Median family income for a family of four, for example, is just under 70,000. So when we're talking 30 or 40% of that, we're talking a family of four with like $21,000 to $28,000 of income in a year. So that's who we're going to hope to reach with that program or that project. I've given you a slide there with an example of the Pettigrew Heights building. That's probably bigger than what we're talking about. We're probably looking at best case maybe 40 units. Could be as few as 20. It depends on how many units we're going to get for those lowest income households. So it's a work in progress now. If we get this approved going ahead this fall, we'll do an RFP and we'll target things like those lower income households. We'll want to a decent repayment structure. As I said before, that program income is a big part of the budget, so we'd want to see something with repayments coming in. We'd also expect the length of affordability to be 20 years minimum, maybe as much as 30 or 40. We'll just see what we can get. This slide just shows that the programs we have to increase the supply of affordable housing. The upper part of the numbers there, the housing units sold or rented, you'll see that fluctuates. In 2012 may look like it's down a little bit, but that's just that was the only year through the neighborhood revitalization program that we didn't complete a multifamily building. So there was a multifamily done in 11, and there's projected to be 11 units, an 11-unit building coming online here this year. So the number of single-family homes really hasn't changed over the years. We're doing 3 to 4 of those, 5 or 6 if we're lucky. So, and then I also want to caution you, the 2014 target number showing 49, that would include the 40 I just mentioned on the previous large affordable housing project. So then we'd be talking about 9 units through neighborhood revitalization, probably 3 single-family homes, duplex, and a 4-plex is what we're thinking. And then the bottom part there just shows the numbers of home buyers assisted, and that's going to go down next year when we restructure the program. The big program we have to stabilize the supply of quality, affordable housing is that single-family housing rehab program, and that's the program where we do loans to low-income households to maintain their house in a decent condition. We give them money to do things like replace a roof, siding, doors, windows, electrical, things like that. So you see 2011 had that 60 number I mentioned earlier, was the most we ever did through that program. 2012 we started experiencing a decline of demand. That's coming back a little bit here in 13 and 14, so that was part of the reason for that true up I mentioned earlier. And then the rental rehab program mentioned there at the bottom. You'll see the number of units actually going up, but we're projecting to spend less money, and that just goes back to we have more to go on now. We know how much an average cost is going to be for that program, so despite spending less money, we think we'll actually help more units next year. This program is the furnace replacement program to increase energy efficiency in housing occupied by low-income households. We first did this program in 2009. There was a grant through the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act to do things like energy efficiency. So we started a furnace replacement program. We did 82 loans in a 1-year period of time. So that was a one-time grant. Well, then last year, now we started it up again using our federal dollars with a combination of the general fund dollars we have. Did 26 last year. We're on pace for 50 this year. We're going to project to do 50 again next year. It's a really good program. It helps lower income households with their budgets and utility costs. This slide just briefly mentions the homeless programs we do. The top slide is more case management. There's a couple different programs covered by those numbers there, and that would be Interlakes Community Action gets funds from us to administer their Heartland House program. That's the program for homeless families with children. They receive intense case management while they're in that program in an effort to move them towards self-sufficiency. And then we also, within that number, it also includes the Bright Futures program, which we developed in partnership with Interlakes Community Action. And that is similar to Heartland House. It's case management for those who are receiving rental assistance through Sioux Falls Housing and Redevelopment Commission. And the numbers on the bottom encompass the tenant-based rental assistance through Sioux Falls Housing, as well as security deposit assistance provided through Interlakes Community Action. So all those programs get funding through our office, and they're all kind of encompassed in this slide, and they all kind of can work together. For instance, a lot of times a family might start with the security deposit, and then if they need ongoing help with rent, they'll get referred to Sioux Falls Housing, and then at that point, they'd also be put on the Bright Futures program. So all three of those programs really work together well. Lastly, we just want to remind you kind of another benefit of the neighborhood revitalization program is the elimination of blighted properties in Sioux Falls. Our partner agency, Affordable Housing Solutions, uses funds provided by our office to acquire vacant blighted properties. And then we've just got some numbers there. We try to do about 8 per year. We've been doing a pretty good job on that, but the slides there show a couple examples of the types of properties we're talking about that get redeveloped. I think Darren said we're just going to wait till the end to do the questions after all 3 divisions, so thank you for your time. And Brent ONeill's up next.
Thank you, Al. I guess from the council, do we want to question each one while they're up there? Or do you want to wait till they're all done? Let me ask, any questions for Al? Okay, we'll wait till the end then. Okay,
thank you.
Our next presenter, Darren, or Brent, thank you.
Hey, good afternoon. I'm Brent ONeill with the Economic Development Division of Community Development, here to talk about our request for 2014. You know, overall, our division's goal and our objective is to support the economy as best as we can in Sioux Falls, making sure what we have now is a strong economy, remains strong or even stronger. We're trying to facilitate economic growth throughout the city and the area. 3 primary things we wanted to mention as we focus on that. One, just our role in assisting businesses, developers, industries, and others through the entitlement process, the local development process, assisting where we can to make that as smooth and hassle-free as possible. We do have programs. We're looking at new programs, but we want to administer those programs in such a way to help promote business, support business, recruit business the best way possible in Sioux Falls. Third, you know, our approach is part of a team approach. We've got the State Office of Economic Development, the Sioux Falls Development Foundation, Downtown Sioux Falls, CCOG, and others, and we all really contribute and contribute our strengths. So we want to make sure that we're always contributing to making that team strong by doing the best we can as a city to support economic development in Sioux Falls. Our request for 2014 is $2.8 million. Of that 2.8, our capital program is limited to a single item, the facade easement program. That's $200,000 requested in 2014. That is a flat over 2013, and we're asking for the same amount in 2014. I'd be happy to answer more questions about that later. I think I know we've discussed it quite a bit, so I won't go into that one in too much detail yet. On the operating side of our budget, $2.6 million is our request. $400,000 of that's for personnel. 1.2 is for other operating, some of the expenses that we have, and a large chunk of that is our partnerships with entities like the foundation or Downtown Sioux Falls, who do have a financial relationship with the city. And then active TIF disbursements from our existing TIF districts will be at $1.1 million in 2014. As we look at our 2014 and how we got to our $2.6 million operating side of the budget request, a small part of that is from our personnel item, just under $20,000. We've got one significant true up, and that's tied to the Main Street Business Improvement District, the hotel portion tax that's going to supplement some of the improvements that were done at the Hilton Garden Inn site where the river ramp used to be. That main true up difference is going from what we envisioned as a partial year in 2013 to a full year in 2014 of what that revenue looks like. So really that is, you know, on a daily basis or monthly basis is really flat, but it does account for going from a partial year to a full year. TIF is the substantial portion of our budget adjustment for 2014, about $360,000. I am going to talk about TIF in a little bit more detail in a future slide. And then we do have a few initiatives of about $50,000 tied to doing some additional market studies, some of the appraisal work that we need to do on some of our dealings. A small portion goes to additional training and some of the travel needs that we have. And then also something that we started doing this year was an internship. And we want to continue that next year on a more regular basis. So that $17,000 is to bring on an internship program on a permanent basis. That gets us to that $2.6 million request for 2014. As far as TIF goes, we are budgeting for our active TIFs. That is the TIFs that have already been passed, approved, and are generating revenue. And we have obligations to pass those revenues on. These funds are collected by the county through property tax, and they're segmented from regular property tax and sent to the city to be deposited into special tax increment district funds. Of the 10 you see there, 8 of them will have revenue that we need to pass on in 2014. TIF 5 goes to pay off bonds that were issued several years ago. TIF 7 through 15 are private developer agreements where we've agreed to use that TIF for those. So TIF 7 through 15 will account for the bulk of that 1.1 million, and then TIF 17 and 18 will actually not come online from a revenue standpoint until 2015, just as part of the leg in the collection of property taxes. As we look at our indicator section of the budget, probably the one thing that we look at to measure our success and our involvement is the number of businesses, developments, industries that we've helped or assisted in any given year. As we started in, going back to 2010 and 11 when some changes were made with the staffing of economic development, we really started looking at this as an indicator. 2012 was the first year that was an indicator in the budget, and we really exceeded our budget, our goal quite a bit. I believe it was 15, and we had 47 by our tracking. That includes anything from a TIF district that we brought forward to working with a project like the apartment project at 115 North Dakota, to Glambia Nutritionals, who we were heavily involved in the recruiting phase of that, to even some projects where we've just played a supporting role to other departments of the city. Our 2013 target, we're going to blow that away. That was probably a little bit low as well. But now that we've had a track record, 2014, our goal is going to be 30, and I really have no doubt that we'll get to that as well. To wrap it up, just want to kind of reiterate our vision. I'm sorry, guys, for not giving you that slide, but I'll leave it there quickly and then move on to the last one. To wrap it up with our vision again, we're supporting promotion, marketing efforts of the Sioux Falls area, doing what we can to promote the strengths we have, recruit when we can, support and enhance growth as much as possible. Again, maximize the collaboration of our partners. We all have a role to play, making sure that we're strengthening that team as much as possible, lifting our weight, so to speak, to make sure that we've got the best foot forward. A very measurable vision for 2014 is finishing our 2025 downtown plan. Our 2015 plan will come to expiration, if you will, in the next year. So we want to extend that vision another 10 years to 2025. Start a local business retention effort, more so than we do now, taking a bigger leg on that, and increase our focus on workforce development in the community. With that, I'll turn it over to Matt on public parking.
Good afternoon, Matt Nelson, Public Parking Facilities Manager. Well, quite simply, our mission is to provide parking for the downtown area to help facilitate business and the users of downtown being able to get downtown. We offer over 2,500 permit and hourly parking spaces in 4 ramps and 15 surface lots, and over 1,100 on-street parking spaces, and those are mostly meters, approximately 1,000 meters, but mixed in are time zones, load zones, taxi stands, moped parking, and even some bus parking. So a little bit of everything downtown. And this year we will be investing 2014 we're asking for $2.6 million to invest in our operating and capital funds. Public parking on the our personnel side, we currently have 4 maintenance staff and 5 parking patrol, 2 office staff, and a manager in our office. That takes about $0.8 million of our budget, and around $0.9 million is for the maintenance and upkeep of our ramps and lots. The maintenance and upkeep for professional services, you'll see snow removal and hauling the snow out of downtown, security services, meter collection, sweeping, commercial window cleaning. We also use part of it for consultants. So what our consultants would do, for example, is they go through our ramps annually and they inspect our ramps just to ensure they're safe and let us know if there's any repairs that have to be made right away, or make long-term preventive maintenance suggestions to us. Part of our repair and maintenance, each year we do a large annual project. That's where the consultants come in. For 2014, we'll be looking at sealing all the windows in the First Avenue ramp and our stairwells that are leaking, and doing a large sealing project. It's a preventive maintenance project that we'll conduct next year. And then our utilities, most of our utilities actually go towards electricity, and those pay for the lights in the ramps because they are on typically 24 hours a day. So it's a security issue where we do need to keep those on continuously. Then we have some miscellaneous supplies and software that take up a portion of our budget also. The big one is our capital expenses for next year. We are looking at an access control system for the Block 11 parking ramp that would be adjacent to the diner restaurant. It would integrate with our new software system, which is a plus for us. It'll be a time saver, and it'll be more of a convenience for our customers. We reserve money for parking lot and ramp improvement. What we'll be doing next year, we'll be looking at landscape improvement and security improvements for 2014. And then we will be replacing one vehicle next year. And we'll be replacing our S10, and we'll be using more of a utility vehicle that will be used to perform their normal duties, plus do snow removal in the winter. And the big expense will be for the design of a new parking ramp. We're excited about that new parking ramp. And that leads into this slide of where we're at. So if you look at our occupancy rates for the past few years here, there's a general rule that we like to apply to this. The general rule is 70% occupancy. We want to be talking about building a new ramp. When we're at 80% occupancy, we want to be planning to build a new ramp. And in a perfect world, when we're at 90%, we would be building a new ramp. In 2013, we're right where we should be. We're talking about building a new ramp, and we're budgeting for 2014 to design it. In 2014, we do expect our occupancy to be above 80%. We're going to be approximately 85%, and what that takes into account is, one, the RFP for the Pavilion Ramp, where we'll lose 70 spaces, and the old CNA building, where conservatively we expect to have at least 100 people come in and use our system to park, and plus natural growth of about 2.5% a year, where we've seen our occupancy grow each year. So we expect to be about 85% in 2014. And in 2015, just through natural growth, on the conservative level, we're hoping to see 88%. So I don't think we get much closer to 90% for building it in 2015. The numbers are looking very good for us to move forward with this plan. As we move forward, we will work with our public parking board. We're putting together a committee now, and we'll start that this fall, where we kind of look at where do we build, what are the needs of downtown, and what should this ramp look like. And as we kind of get some of that stuff figured out, we will move forward with the design in 2014. And the location of that, I think we're open on location. The primary, or the best location we'd look at right now would probably be between Skelly's and the River Center building. We currently own that land, and we have a high demand in that area. The size could vary. We're looking anywhere from 300 to 600 stalls. So I think it's open, but we are looking at that now. And then our vision moving forward. The biggest thing for us is we want to add customer service and convenience to our parking system. You've seen our credit card meters. You've seen that we've upgraded at First Avenue. We're still working on our pavilion upgrades to take credit cards. And next year we'll be looking to upgrade at the Block 11 ramp also. So easy parking is our goal. We just want to make it easier for people to come downtown and park and enjoy our downtown area. One of the big things that we'll see that we're implementing at the end of this year and will carry over into next year is the implementation of the T2 Flex system. It's a new parking enterprise system, so it's a whole new back end for our software. And what people will see on the outside is online payments for parking tickets and lease payments, and we will also be going to a lockbox operation. So like our utility bills now, they'll be processed by an outside company and by machines. Currently now they're all processed individually by hand. So this will be a time saver for us and a money saver also. And the best thing about the T2 system is that it's an open architecture, so we'll be able to implement a lot of different types of parking solutions to make the parking experience much easier on our customers. And then the last thing that we'll be doing, you'll see us, we're going to start kicking that off in a week. We are going to be doing a marketing push for our public parking system, and our goal is to create a unified look, a unified message, and increase our customer service levels. And like I said, you'll see more of that in the next week, but we're excited about that also.
Thank you, Matt. Darren, any closing comments?
Maybe just touch on a couple things real quick. I always have, or you have the benefit when you're listening to everybody else talk to catch a few things here and there. Maybe just a couple in the affordable housing area for the large multifamily project. You saw a number that was $342,000 to that line item. Our proposal is to actually make $500,000 available. So the reason it shows 342 in there is it's basically a slide that's supposed to walk you through how you get from 3.3 million in one year to 3.4 million in one year to 3.3 in another. And so there's parentheses and different things as you go through there. And I'm sorry, I probably didn't help clear that up any, but the reality is we are proposing to make $500,000 available for that project. So I wanted to point that out. And then with the parking, I would just say that Matt touched on, our projections, conservative projections would have us at about 85% of the system by the end of 2014 would be occupied. Based on our work with downtown development as well and being very close with that, personally I feel like it's very likely we could be at 90% or even exceeding 90% with some projects that we're aware of that could come to fruition in the next 12 to 15 months. And the reason you always want a little bit of space available in the parking system, at least 10%, is in our case 10% is around 200 spaces. You always want that many available somewhere in the system, in fact maybe even a few more, because you always want to be prepared for that business or some kind of development that comes downtown and says, hey, we'd love to be in downtown Sioux Falls, but we need 200 spaces. You never want to be in a position to say, we'd love to have you, but you need to wait 18 months while we design and build a new ramp. And if you have the business model structured appropriately, you can have a system at 80 or even 90% occupied and still be sustainable and able to reinvest with surplus funds. And that's where we've been. So, and with that, we would welcome any questions.
Questions from the councilors? Councilor Jameson.
Darren, for you or Matt, on the parking, the ramp next to or kitty corner of the pavilion, is
Yes.
that capable of holding another layer?
No, unfortunately it's not. And it is something that we looked at some time ago, and it just was not built in such a way that you can go up.
When you do your studying of location, I guess I'm hearing a little concern about the loss of that parking lot adjacent to the ramp. I don't even know what the name of it is.
Oh, yeah, the surface lot.
Lot.
Yeah, where Sushimasa
Right.
and the RFP. Yep.
Just recently participated in a focus group at the pavilion on some of their issues, and parking is an issue.
Yep.
You have that on your radar? I mean,
Oh, yeah,
okay.
Absolutely. And I can assure you that, well, for one, we've, before we decided to move forward with that RFP and even see, what there would be for potential projects out there, we did, one of the first conversations we had was with Larry Toll in the pavilion. Now, I feel pretty comfortable in saying that they've assured us that they will be fine, continue to function fine without that surface lot for their events. They're very supportive of this project, but we will bring any proposal to you. We feel like we are pretty close to being able to have something we can bring to you that we would recommend for support or approval, but ultimately that is, those are the types of issues we would talk through with you folks and make sure everybody's on the same page in supporting that.
Okay, thank you.
And I may just add, maybe I will just add real quickly to that, we do have 2 additional surface lots. One is very close to the pavilion that frankly has been an underperforming surface lot. The Nordic, we call the Nordic Hall lot, which is just a little bit to the south and west of the pavilion and west of that church. That is an underperforming surface lot that's somewhat similar in size to the one we're talking about that the RFP is associated with. And then there's also the surface lot behind the Shriners as well.
Councilor Erpenbach.
I wonder, Mr. Chair, if you want to do this by topic, or do you want to just jump around, or how do you, because I don't want to ask about parking if
Well,
I'm ready to switch.
I guess let's just take it, whoever you will, of the last 3 you'd like to talk to, let's go that way.
I have a couple of parking questions. So
Councilor Anderson.
just keep along that line. In the presentation, you talked about the property on 10th Street and First Avenue for potential another parking ramp.
Yeah.
Is there still a private proposal on that property going on, or is that completely gone now?
Yeah, I think that was a few years ago, and it was before my time, but I am familiar with that, and no, that was something that came forward, and I think it looked like it had momentum and promise, and then the recession hit, and that all went away. I would say this, we're really in the preliminary stages of this process. We would like to put a small group together to be very thoughtful about where a potential ramp would go and when, what it would look like. We also very much like the idea of exploring the possibility of a public-private partnership, much like the one that was proposed a few years ago, particularly at that location. I'm not going to go ahead and say we'd rule out having a large parking ramp that would sit right there and face 10th Street, but I would go as far as to say we would definitely like to explore the possibility of having something other than a parking ramp immediately adjacent to 10th Street, something that could be residential or office, something to that effect, or retail and office and residential, who knows, right there, because it is a, it's a pretty good sized parcel right there.
And one more?
Yes, sir.
As we expand our downtown east of the river, are we also going to expand our parking meter program?
Yes, the parking system will basically go where the demand is. That's the beauty of the enterprise funds we have. They essentially function like small businesses inside of city government, as you all know, and so we will expand the system where there is demand for the system and where we can sustain the system financially. So the short answer would be yes, if that's warranted and appropriate. And anytime we go into an area, maybe for the first time, or we want to look at changing something, maybe it's changing from metered parking to leased on-street parking, which is something we're looking at, we've never done before, we will absolutely engage the businesses and any residents around that area and get them involved in that conversation if they think that's for the better or not for the better, or how that needs to look. And we would do that if we went east.
Thank you.
Councilor Rolfing?
Yes, Brent? Or Darren can probably answer this too. I noticed in your budget there's a hotel occupancy fee program in a detail. What is that used for?
I'm guessing that's the
Brent knows.
hotel
It
bid.
appears Brent knows, so maybe we should ask him to.
Yeah, as part of the river ramp demo and the approval of the Hilton Hotel project, as we were putting together our package, what we did was dedicated a certain percent of a hotel occupancy tax generated from that hotel back into certain improvements at the sites. That includes, some grading to get the proper grade with the river. I'd have to look at the exact details because we had the TIF 14 was in place there, and then the bid, and those two combined to fill the gap that was needed on that project. So, for example, the demo costs of the ramp went in that, and I just don't recall off the top of my head how that was dispersed between the TIF and the bid. But that's really those types of costs that were included in the occupancy tax.
Okay.
Any other questions? Councilor Anderson Jr.
Since they were discussing TIFs, Brent, you stated TIF 17 and 18 were not online at this time. Can you explain that a little further?
Sure. There, in general, is about a 2 to 3 year lag from the date the council would adopt a TIF to the point where revenue comes in for a TIF district. And the reason for that is, the council is approving a TIF district before any improvements happen to a property. So, there's a construction season involved, and then after the construction season, it's assessed, so that valuation is determined. But then because of property taxes being collected in arrears, it ends up being an additional year before that. So, for example, TIF 17, which, has the Costco project, November 1 of 2013 will be the first year that increment appears as far as evaluation. and then that'll get applied to the 2014 taxes, which are paid in 2015. So April of 2015 is we'd expect our first revenues.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Darren, thank you and your team. Very well done.
Counselor?
One more? I'm sorry, I thought we were done.
No,
Okay.
I
Counselor
really do have
Erpenbach.
questions, just not about those particular topics.
Okay, well, we'll go on then.
I would like to talk a little bit about affordable housing. I'm really excited about the $342,000 increase to make $500,000 for that
Yes,
that large project. That's going to do some amazing things toward that affordable housing issue that we've known about. You know, we've known anecdotally for years and years and years, but since 2010 with the study, that's a huge piece of this budget, and I hope that my colleagues will support that fully. My questions then go to the Bright Starts program and Heartland House. How much do we contribute as a city toward those programs?
Well, we have two different arrangements with Heartland House. I should look. I want to say Heartland House. The contract for service outside of Bright Futures to support Heartland House, I believe, is $20,000. Is that 22? $22,000 to Heartland House. Then Bright Futures is a combination of rental assistance and case management, and that was a new program we started because we saw a need to tie case management to rental assistance and not just have rental assistance and hope for the best. And I think it's been very successful. With the case management portion with Heartland House, I believe, is approximately $55,000. And then rental assistance, which is part of that program but actually goes through Sioux Falls Housing, that is closer to $200,000.
Okay, Mr. Chair, if I could continue.
You bet.
Then my question is, I would assume that our contribution toward Heartland House is a pretty small portion of their budget. So does that give us much say in their policies or anything that, I mean, how they manage things? Or we just say, here you go, good luck?
Well, I suppose anytime, you know, that it can be proportional, but I feel like we have a very good working relationship with them. And I think they feel like our dollars are, you know, important to them, so.
Yeah, well, I'm sure that they do. So the real question then is, how do we know what we're getting for that money? I mean, if we're at $275,000 between the two, between Bright Futures and Heartland House with all those pieces and parts.
Yeah.
How do we measure that? And I mean, I'm looking at the chart that shows, you know, Heartland House works with 70 families. Our target is 70 next year, 42 families for Bright Futures next year. Is working with them, is that our outcome, or do we look at them 6 months down the road and say, hey, they're a success because they fulfilled these requirements, or do we just send them merrily on their way? How do we measure that?
It's a great question, and I should probably clarify too quickly that Heartland House is a separate contract for service, and then Bright Futures is actually a partnership we have with ICAP. That's who does the case management. It's Heartland House-like in nature. And then also the rental assistance through Sioux Falls Housing, which I mentioned. With both of those, we do get reports from them, and that is something that we would be happy to pass along to the council as additional information. We receive them from, I'm trying to think, ICAP and I believe Heartland House. We receive monthly reports on the number of people they assist and how they assist them, and those types of outcomes. And then we do have a contract for service with them. So with Heartland House, and that was something that was changed a few years ago when the city went away from, quote, subsidies for a number of organizations, that number was dwindled greatly, and we entered into what we called contracts for service. Those are things that the city believes they would have an obligation to do, moral or otherwise, in the community, but a nonprofit or other entity is doing it for us, so we don't have to, and it saves us money and staff time. So we have a contract for service. That is something that we could pull out and send to the council, and then going forward, also we could provide those reports that we get from those organizations, and that's how we monitor their progress and that they're doing what they've committed to do in any contract for service they have with us or agreement.
If I might, just one more, Mr. Chair. Maybe this is an offline conversation, but is this one of those? I mean, we're looking at $250,000 that we might be using for something else. Mm-hmm. If we were to know, I mean, I understand the numbers, I understand the monthly report, and I'd love to see it.
Yep.
But what are we looking at in terms of those folks down the road? Are we then dealing with them in another program because they didn't do well? That's where I'm at with this, is
Yep.
can we be doing better for these folks
Yep.
with that money? And are we looking at that? And that's why I say it's maybe not a budget conversation. Maybe it's a conversation we need to have more deeply in terms of policy and where we want to go with this cash.
No, I believe it's both a budget and a policy and a community discussion. Well, if I could just for a moment focus on Bright Futures. I mean, that is one that I'm very close to personally, and it was one of the things that I wanted to do in this position, and a change we made a couple years ago that I think has been very, very successful. And in fact, I think I've shared with the council some of the letters before from those who have gone through the program. When I started, one of the things that I did, as anybody new in a position would, is really looked at every single program we have. What are we doing? Why are we doing it that way? Why aren't we doing it differently? And one area that really got my attention was a rental assistance. We're spending a significant amount of money, 6 figures plus, providing rental assistance. And as I looked at the number of people we were assisting in the community in 2008, 2009, 2010, and so forth, we were spending more money and helping fewer people. And so when you drilled down a little further and got more information on the folks we were helping, what was happening is years ago they'd stay on for a short period of time, get the assistance they needed, temporary assistance, and then they were on to being self-sufficient, hopefully. Well, that dramatically changed, and maybe a part of that is the recession, and a part of it was just not paying as much attention to that area as we should have, because we had fewer and fewer people staying on longer and longer, and they were staying on the maximum period of time, and then they were just transitioning to other assistance programs. Well, to me, and I think a lot of people, that's not why those programs exist. And you know, an analogy I've always used, or a popular phrase of, you know, teaching people how to fish as opposed to just giving them fish. I think we were just giving them fish. And now through Bright Futures, we're teaching them how to fish. It's intense case management, Heartland House style, tough love, whatever you want to call it, where they have to go to monthly classes to learn why it's important to have a job, stay in that job, why your credit report, your credit score is important, why it's important to go to work every day, take your kids to school every day, balance the checkbook, pay the bills, all those things that many of us take for granted learning as we grew up. These folks didn't for one reason or another. And so now they're learning all those things, and that's one of the reasons they're dependent. But it's a 24-month program, and oftentimes they graduate well in advance of that, and then they do become self-sufficient. I think it's been very, very successful.
Okay, good, thank you.
Okay. I'm going to get to Councilor Egger in a second. There in our world, government world of acronyms, you mentioned ICAP. You want to?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Interlakes Community Action Program, Partnership.
Okay. Okay. Councilor Aguilar.
And isn't Heartland House a program of ICAP?
Yes.
So and ICAP is the governing body of Heartland House. Isn't that the case?
Yes, I believe that's correct, and that's why I immediately, when the question came up with one, I immediately combined it with ICAP, because yes, they are essentially under the same umbrella. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Questions on affordable housing, parking, or community development? Don't want to get old of myself. Councilor Anderson, Jr.
Darren, I love the homeowner programs, the assistant programs, your furnace replacement, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
The only comment I have on those, I would like to see them better promoted.
Yep.
I think that a lot of homeowners and even rental homeowners and apartment owners don't understand
Right.
that they can participate in these programs and upgrade their facilities. Also, can you explain the role of your department in the homeowner replacement program? You guys don't actually participate in the building of the houses, correct? It's done by Affordable Housing Solutions?
What we call the Neighborhood Revitalization Single Family Housing Program. Yes, it's a unique relationship and partnership we have with Affordable Housing Solutions, which is part of Sioux Falls Housing, where they go through our application process annually seeking funds for a variety of programs. They're a large nonprofit focused exclusively on affordable housing issues. They are approved for dollars to go and acquire blighted properties, and oftentimes, whether it's through us or something in Kevin Smith's world with code enforcement, they become aware of a property that nothing more can be done and it's available and it's a good opportunity to acquire and bulldoze and start over. Those are leads that we'll pass on to them, and then they will go and acquire, and then that property will be made available for redevelopment. Now, they do oversee the building of that house, but Paul Hess on our staff, who I know has been in front of you and you're familiar with Paul, Paul has the type of construction expertise that they don't have on staff, and so Paul is very involved with them in those projects and overseeing them. But at the end of the day, it is Affordable Housing Solutions property, and it is their home, their spec home for sale when that house is completed and ready for sale.
And if I may, one?
Yes, sir.
The properties that we are getting from the county,
Yeah.
we are basically the placeholder for those properties until the council says that they can be passed over to Affordable Housing Solutions, correct?
That's correct. And they can go to anybody. They can be transferred to whoever we feel, is a good partner or has a good project for that site. And that's, and we've talked about this a little bit before, but because of the state laws regarding public property, and our only way to dispose of property is through the surplus property process, which may be ideal for cars and printers, but it's not for homes when we're specifically trying to help the income qualifying or the low income. It isn't ideal for that, so we work through partners. But you're absolutely right. When we get those, it's with council approval only that they are transferred from our possession to somebody else's.
So it really isn't, you can't really transfer it to anybody. There are restrictions on who we can transfer these properties to.
Yes, that's right.
Okay.
Other units of government and qualifying nonprofits basically is what it amounts to. It's really not unlike what we do with fire trucks and other type of equipment we give to small towns and others. It's basically the same concept.
Okay, thank you.
Again, council, any other questions? Well, Darren, for the second time, thank you and your team. Appreciate it. Did a good job. We're going to now move into health, and Director Franken.
Good afternoon. Jill Franken, Sioux Falls Health Director. I'm pleased to be here today to share with you our proposed 2014 budget for our department. When we look at investing $11.2 million in operating and capital, it will allow us to carry out our mission of the health department, which will include to provide access to health services, to promote health and prevent disease, and protect the community from health hazards and disease transmission. We do have in our capital program, just to quickly summarize that, it's a relatively small amount compared to our total budget, $121,000 for 2014. It will allow us to replace a couple of pieces of equipment that are aged, and also a couple of pickups in our fleet that need to be replaced. So now let's just get into the meat of our budget, the operating budget. First, I want to talk a little bit about revenue and remind you of where our revenue sources come from. The health department, we're funded by three primary sources. 50% or half of our budget revenue is charges for goods and services, or $5.5 million. We have about 29% or $3.2 million comes from our grants that we receive. 17% or $1.9 million is from our general fund, or from the general fund. and 4% or $500,000 is from other sources, such as fees from fines, licensing, permitting, etc. When budgeting for our department, we continue to monitor and try and negate the impact to the general fund as much as possible through maximizing opportunities to bring in revenue. So that takes us to the next slide. Each year I present at this budget hearing, I share that the health department in multiple ways generates revenue to support the services that we provide, as noted on, that I noted on the previous slide. This slide shows the two programmatic areas of our work, the clinical as well as the public health or environmental areas of our department. And the net impact is the difference between the revenues and expenses and how much the general fund contributes to the work that we do. As you can see in our current budget year, the budgeted general fund impact, we fondly refer to it as GFI, not to be confused with ground fault indicator. We were having a little joke. I'm just trying to create a little levity here. But our general fund impact for CHC this year is $0.5 million, and for environmental public health is $1.3 million. For 2014, the general fund impact for community health is projected to be flat, or again at $0.5 million, and for the environmental public health will be $1.4 million of the total $11 million operating budget that we're projecting. So let's get into the expense budget and identify the changes from 2013 to proposed 2014. In the environmental public health section of our expense budget, the majority of the increases are in three categories. We have, of course, wages and benefits. We do have one retirement coming up that we project for next year in that area of our department, and we also have, of course, COLAs and step increases. We have some inflationary rate. There's some vector mosquito control chemical cost increases that are in our budget, as well as some true-up, increased grants, which are on the revenue side, that then, of course, ties to a little bit of increase on the expense side. So on the environmental or public health budget side, we're going from $2.3 million to $2.5 million. So next I'm just going to share a little bit about the quality piece on the environmental or public health side. We know that our citizens consider investment in public health services very important or somewhat important. In the most recent citizen survey, investment in public health was rated in those two categories, very important or somewhat important, combined at 87%. So we obviously know that our public is understanding the impact that we as a department have on the community. So let's talk from a public health standpoint and how we measure certain aspects of our public health services. Responsiveness to concerns and complaints in a timely manner has been an important measure of the health department. We aim high, and we've been consistently able to meet that target over the last few years. Responding to health code complaints within 48 hours has become sort of an important measure for us, and we know that that impacts you as well. You get a lot of calls, and you're oftentimes the first ones that residents in our community call when they are frustrated with a neighbor or a situation, and the more quickly we can respond to that and get that corrected, the better, and get that case started. So also, keeping voluntary resolution of code enforcement cases at a high percentage is also critical. When we notify a property owner of an issue, it is great when that property owner takes responsibility and corrects the problem without need for further enforcement. It's good for the neighborhood, it's good for our department, and it's definitely good for the city. So now we're going to switch gears, and the rest of my presentation is probably going to be much more aligned on the community health center side of the budget, because there's a lot happening there. So the health budget for 2014 on the community health side is $8.5 million. So let's break down where those increases are related to in the CHC budget. We have wages and benefit. That's excluding the new FTs that I'll visit about. So again, we have 2 retirements in this area that we're projecting, and then we also, of course, have COLAs and step increases. We have some pharmaceutical costs that we'll know is increasing, but we also charge for goods and services for pharmaceuticals, so that we do receive revenue for that expense. We also have increased service demand, Primarily, the bulk of that is expanding Hayward to a full year of operation. We opened a mid-year this year, and by the way, that is just a really big hit in that area of town and in the neighborhood. And so next year we'll be operating a full year. Again, we have revenues that are tied to those expenses as well. We have some true-up where we have just little fluctuations here and there in our grants and contracts that are accounted for here. And lastly, our initiatives, which is our business plan. In a few slides, I will review our initiatives, which will further explain the revenue over expenses related to the budget initiative for 2014. So I'll now further break down the health department initiatives in our expense budget. Corresponding revenues for these new positions will be reviewed in a later slide. So right now, I just want to talk about the initiatives as a whole. We have in our budget for 2014 7 new positions, and I know this was referenced by Director Turbach and Director O'Toole in their presentations, so you're aware of this, and that is for wages and benefits for those 7 positions, $805,000. However, we will be reducing through our initiative and our business plan our part-time budget by $29,000, and we're also reducing a portion of our provider contract by $609,000. And lastly, in our initiatives, we've been several years now with an electronic health record, and that has now allowed us to reduce our paper charts. And we've got quite a bit of square footage in the center of our clinical space that we will remodel and repurpose for other uses in the future. So that is some of that remodel is that $30,000 will take care of some of that remodel. So let's talk further. In the budget for 2014 to operate Falls Community Health more effectively and assure we are maximizing all our fiscal resources, we have taken quite a bit of time to analyze our opportunities for improvement, which lead to the following changes to the 2014 health budget. The first opportunity we have is to add a billing specialist to our clinical support staff. Currently, we have 2 billing specialists in our department. However, with the growth of our clinical services, it is no longer feasible to have just two FTE doing that work. We're not capturing all of the revenue through managing our billing and collections process. So we need an additional FTE there. Secondly, my team will be better able to manage our clinical support needs by transferring some of our part-time wages to a full-time position to hire an additional patient support tech. We've calculated that with these additional FTE, we can actually increase revenue above and beyond the expense of these positions for a budget positive impact, and I'll show that on the next slide. Our personnel budget is also a change to transition a portion of our provider staff from contracted to employed. Those would be 5 positions that I'll talk more about. This includes a physician position that will become our medical director for our department, an employed medical director, as well as 4 advanced practice providers or nurse practitioners. And bottom line, these are budget neutral impacts in the end. So let's review the budget impact, as I stated, of our staffing initiative. Again, we have 7 FTEs with wages and benefits of $105,000. However, with the provider change, we do expect to generate revenue of $125,000 is projected, and then the other $175,000 of what's shown here is $300,000 will be generated from the additional billing specialists. So when I talked about adding additional billing specialists, that comes with enhanced revenue generation, working those claims better. $29,000 will be used or transferred from our part-time wages category, and $609,000 will be reduced from our contract budget area. So the $300,000, the $29,000, and the $609,000 equals that offset that Bill O'Toole talked about in his presentation. So you can tie that directly back to that offset. So we actually have a total positive budget impact of $133,000, which ties back to a prior slide where I identified we project a flat general fund impact in 2014. That's a lot of information, and so now I need to share with you Why are we doing this? Why did we decide to take this step? When we employ operational efficiencies to increase the access for patient care as well as improve care coordination, that is an absolute win for those that we serve. Contract provider turnover has been higher than we would desire in the past couple years, and this has created missed opportunities and has directly impacted access to our patients, for our patients. It's our aim to reduce the variability that occurs with provider turnover. We estimate that we will, when this is fully implemented, be able to generate an additional 1,200 patient visits annually with this change. But what do I mean exactly when I talk about missed opportunities? I think it's important for me to explain that a little bit further. When we schedule our staff, we schedule care teams comprised of the medical provider as well as a nurse and a support tech to see the patients on their schedule for that given day. The ability to see patients and bill for those services is dependent on that provider. If the provider is not there to see the patient, we can't see the patient, we can't bill for the service. When we have vacancies in providers, it impacts our full productivity and creates revenue variability. Patients cannot be scheduled nor seen, no bill can be generated, and yet we have the cost of the nurse, PST, and fixed operational costs. So bottom line, no provider equals no revenue, or no visit, which equals no revenue to cover our fixed costs. So, in addition to impacting our patients, we have a great opportunity as well to impact the operational structure and effectiveness of the Community Health Center and the Health Department as a whole. As the Community Health Center and Live Well Sioux Falls continue to evolve and impact the community, the well-being and health of Sioux Falls, it is necessary for our leadership team to include physician expertise and management oversight in a full-time capacity. It is time for Falls Community Health and the Health Department to employ versus contract for a medical director. This change will also enhance our focus and accountability on quality. Grant-required quality measures are integral, and I'll talk a little bit about them next. They're critical to the operations of the Community Health Center. Quality is an ever greater component of reimbursement equation now and into the future. This is a new age of healthcare delivery. Better care means the right care at the right time. It also means improving quality, and it means decreasing the cost of care. Primary care is a significant part of the solution to achieving this aim, and community health centers are actually at the forefront of the quality movement nationally. I want to share now just a brief example of how we have demonstrated success in moving from contracted to employed staff in another area of our department. As you might recall, as you think of the history of our health department and Community Health Center, in 2001 we opened dental services for the first time. For about 5 years we then contracted for dental providers rather than employing them. In 2006 we worked with Human Resources and decided it would better serve us to employ our dentists rather than contracting through independent contractor. Well, we did that, and when we did that, we had some unexpected positive results that, not totally unexpected, because there were reasons we went from contracted to employed that are somewhat similar to here, but we just had no real history of doing that, and so we didn't know how well we would that would be received and the positive results that would occur. First thing that we found was that we had less issue with turnover, and we had better retention, not just from our dentists, but our hygienists and the dental assistants and the staff of the dental clinic. When those dentists were employed, they were more bought into the department, bought into the goals and objectives, the mission of the health department and the health center, and it really did create a more team atmosphere. We also were surprised at how productivity increased. We actually went from, prior to employing our dentists, we were at about 30, I'm going to tell you a few numbers here, so hopefully this will all fit together. We were at about 2,300 visits per dentist per year on average, okay? When we went then in 2012, our statistics were at 2,850 visits per dentist per year. That's a 550 patient visit per dentist per year increase. That's significant. And that, again, was from the great work of our dental director, working as part of the team, and the other dentists being part of the team, and really looking at how we have opportunities to be more efficient, effective, while not burning out our staff. Obviously, they're not burned out if our retention is good. Last but not least, quality of care has increased as well. When we first started providing some opportunities to do measurement of our quality in the dental clinic, one thing we decided to measure, which actually has become something that's being measured not just at community health, but we sort of were the pilot or the lead in creating this measure, and that is completed treatment plan. So within 6 months from first seeing a patient, when you set out a treatment plan, you'd like to get it done in 6 months. When we first started tracking how well we were doing with that, we were at about 35% of the time. Just last year, and I know we've been even higher than this as we've measured this quarterly or as often as we measure it. Last year at 62% of the time we're completing treatment plan within 6 months, and I know we've been as high as 75%. So that also speaks to the opportunity for access, quality, and when we generate more revenue, it ends up being a win for the department as a whole. It's time for the medical clinic to take this on as well and to employ our provider staff for the Community Health Center Medical Clinic. So I've discussed quality in a couple areas, but I also want to leave you with a couple of examples of how we measure quality on the Community Health Center side. I talked about the completed treatment plans, but here's a couple others. To put this in context, just for our federal grant funding alone, we have to report 15 measures annually, and these are 2 of those 15 measures. We have a follow-up plan for people. We need to assure that we have a follow-up plan for people who are overweight or underweight, and we also have to track that patients with hypertension maintain a normal blood pressure. I'm going to be really quick with these and tell you that for the first measure, the top one, we have work to do. We first started measuring that in 2011. That was our baseline, and we improved it a little bit in 2012. We have a target of 44%, which is where the state is on average, and we'd like to get it even higher than that because nationally it's running about 48%. On the hypertension side, which is a huge measure of reducing mortality and morbidity, as is the first, we have huge success, and we actually are exceeding the state and national averages for community health centers. And I have to tell you that Healthy People 2020 sets a goal of 61%. And currently, they estimate we're at 44% nationally for this measure. So for us to be at 65 is really positive. So we've got work to do in some areas, and we have great success in others. So in closing, this budget process has certainly been an excellent example of collaboration interdepartmentally. I have to thank my health team of managers. Finance has done a tremendous amount of work. Human Resources, our Board of Health, our Falls Community Health Governing Board, for preparing and supporting the budget initiatives. I have to specifically say Amy Richardson and Tim Conda did a ton of work when we have an idea of them creating the business case for us to be able to do this and bring you the kind of budget that we're bringing. But I also, lastly, but most importantly, have to thank the staff. And I think there's some, raise your hand, from Health Department, please. Yeah. A few of us here, mostly management, that are here. But when I have to thank the staff as well, who provide ongoing input and feedback in meetings, in the clinic hallways, and in the work areas. And to quote one of my team, when hearing our budget presentation to staff, said, "It is evident that you really listened to us," when they heard of the things we were proposing. This budget allows health leadership to properly align staff and maximize resources and make the most of our local, state, and federal funds. This budget plan will create more primary care access and continuity, improve our team structure across the health department, and carry out the goals and objectives of our department. This ends my presentation, and our team is here for questions. Thank you.
Questions for Director Franklin? Councilor Aguilar.
Jill, when you're talking about the 6 positions that the providers, could you break that down as far as doctors, physician assistants? What are you looking at?
Sure. It's 5 positions for providers. 1 would be our medical director, and 4 would be advanced practice providers. So that'd be either nurse practitioner or PA. So we're leaving that. We're going to try and there's some good effort out there to look at job descriptions where you can hire either a PA or a nurse practitioner. And so we don't want to pigeonhole ourselves into so many of them being one or the other.
So do you foresee this as a complete turnover in providers?
Not necessarily. When we presented this to staff and have had conversations with our contracted providers, we've made it very clear that we would consider those staff that we've been contracting with and have been working with us for a very long time to be extremely viable candidates, and would very much encourage them to apply for these positions, and would consider that they'd be pretty competitive in the interview process, I would imagine.
Thank you.
Councilor Jameson.
Thank you. Jill, I haven't heard very many complaints about your department.
Have not?
Have not.
That's good.
So that's a good sign. There are other departments that I hear about, but yours is well referred to, at least by people who are communicating with me.
Good.
So good job in that.
Thank you.
Reflect. There was a lot of discussion about these individuals that were contract employees that you're trying to turn over into city employees. We had some input given to us the other night regarding a reference to Obamacare. And that's why these people were being hired. I sense that it's a confusion more on anything. Maybe it was a misreference in the paper. I'm not sure. But could you just shed a little light on that for us?
Sure. We need to be prepared for some of those things that I discussed earlier, and that is in order to provide better care, we have to be very timely so that our patients have access to care, and that we can create as much access as is possible, and that we do so in a manner that is of high quality, and then also that we're being as cost effective as we possibly can. So when we've looked for opportunities to do that in our department, we really have started realizing we have opportunity here. When we have the kind of variability we've had in the last year and a half to 2 years with some of our provider staff turnover, it's really wreaked havoc with us. We set some, aims for how many visits we're going to achieve in our department annually for the clinical side, and when we aren't able to meet that, it starts to give us some pause as to why that's occurring. And so when we start drilling that down and looking at that, we start realizing it's the turnover. Some of that is the turnover, as well as having those staff on board and employed in our department, especially the medical director, to lead the work that needs to be done to be able to make sure we are meeting our goals and objectives, especially in a quality manner. And so when we realized that, it's been something that I have been for the last couple years really working towards, and making sure that we have all of our work done before we're presenting it in this way to you today.
Thank you. And as well, the individuals, the contract employees that you're looking to make permanent, I don't know any of them, but as I understand, some of them are highly regarded individuals, and they probably have a following of some sort, like most doctors do and caregivers do. I know you talked about giving them high consideration when they're returned, but is there any other way to make sure we can keep those good providers and have them as employees? Is there any other way to kind of make sure we get them and we don't lose them?
Yes. One of the activities, or not activities, but one of the things that will remain in our budget is to continue to be a really solid site for the family practice residency program. We want to continue to train our second and third year residents on how to work in a model like ours. We are not your Center for Family Medicine, where they get very much more, the majority of their experience and exposure to patients is an educational model, whereas ours is really an access model. And so things like productivity and all of that is very much, how are we making sure that we have revenues to cover our costs to the best that we can, things of that nature. Are what we feel residents gain a lot from before they go out into private practice. And so we want to continue to train them because we also know it's good to train them here and keep them here hopefully, or have them want to work in a health center down the road. And so that would be one area where we will continue. And so the faculty that are training and working and coming to actually oversee those residents when they come to work with us, they will continue to be faculty coming to oversee the residents. There's some additional, I don't want to get into too many specifics maybe on the providers. If they're really good, absolutely, we're going to be making sure that if at all possible, we can encourage them and have them apply. One of the challenges that we have is that we have a lot of staff making up a very small FTE, and we have to start working that down. We have to start minimizing that. We have a lot of folks and here a little bit of time, and we have to start impacting that because that's some of what's causing us to have some challenges as well in managing the operations. So, but if they're good, we're going to do everything in our power to try and get them to apply and hire them. So,
good. Thanks.
Councilor Rolfing?
Thank you. Let's talk a little bit more about what you just said.
Sure.
I just put a pencil to very quickly. You were talking about 2,500 visits per doctor. It went from 23 to
28.50 for the dentists. For the dentists, that was
dentists. Okay, that's a little over what 11 patients a day. Are the doctors the same way? The medical doctors?
I'm sorry. What was your question?
Is patients being seen by the doctors and medical doctors about the same?
It's not necessarily the same. The dentists may not see quite as many in a day as a doctor because of the procedures that they do. They do a lot more procedure work that's time intensive, and so you may not be able to do quite as many dental patients as you do medical patients.
I think, is that less or more than a private doctor in private practice or with one of the hospitals and things? It seems to me that's...
For the dentists, are you talking? For that 23 to
medical
20?
Medical doctors.
You want to come up and talk a little bit about that?
Amy Richardson, Public Health Finance and Information Officer.
I can't hear you, I'm sorry.
Amy Richardson, Public Health Finance and Information Officer. It is different for different types of providers. So the dentists have productivity levels. A medical doctor would have a productivity level. Second and third year residents would be different. A nurse practitioner.
But for family practice doc, I'm thinking they're seeing 20, 25 people a day?
It's possible that they could, yes. It'd be more than the dentist because they're not doing as many procedures.
No, I understand the difference between the dentist and the doctors, but the doctors, as I have a few friends who are in that situation, I'm thinking 20, 25 patients a day.
Yeah, they sure can.
And are we talking how many? And what I'm getting at is what the difference, why is ours so few, or is fewer?
Why ours is fewer? I'm not quite
And
sure.
I know the dentists, but you were just saying that our medical doctors will see a few more than the dentists. But is it up to the 25 or 20?
Yes, it's at least
it is.
25.
We're comparable. Okay.
Yes.
That's what I need
Yes.
to know. That's
Okay.
what I need to know.
All right.
Thank you. And secondly, then, another question.
Can I just provide a clarification there?
You bet.
What we've projected will be comparable to what the doctors, what you're talking about. Yes, what we're projecting.
Okay, that's what I need to know. And you were right. I kind of had the dentist in my mind, and then you clarified that, so I just wanted to make sure. The other question I had was on the uncollectible receivables. We got $500,000 sitting in there. Can you explain that a little bit to us?
Sure, I can. And that is something that with our billing specialist we'll hope to affect, but I'll have Amy, is there anything you want to add to that as far as uncollectible? We'll eventually, you saw that we aren't expecting an increase. Well, we'll hopefully increase, in our visits and revenue. We're hoping that'll stay flat, and that's a conservative estimate. We'd hope that it would even be less next year.
We'll be able to, because of the billing
Absolutely.
person, we'll be able to go out
Absolutely.
and get some of that money.
You bet.
Is that money that, because of the nature of the community health center, that we're probably just going to have?
We will always have some, and it'll always be, a work in progress to work that down. Over half of our patients are uninsured, so that would be where the challenge lies. And where they have sliding fee discounts for their services based on income, it's the balance of that they have sometimes a real challenge in paying.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other questions for health? If not, I do have one or two, Jill. Explain to me, do we have a medical director currently as a contract position?
We do. We currently contract with Center for Family Medicine for our medical director, and have for quite a few years.
And is the medical director a physician, an MD?
Yes.
Okay. And obviously, we don't have any physicians on staff other than the ones that are contract. Is that
Correct.
right? Okay. Thank you.
You bet.
I do have one more.
Oh, Councilor Rolfing.
Sorry about that. Evaluations of these 5 more FTEs. How would the evaluation process go on this, depending on?
Sure. We would develop an evaluation for the nurse practitioners that'd be very similar to staff right now. They'd have an annual evaluation and be eligible for increases based on that. I've done give a comparable to the dentists. What I've done is, since they're actually appointed staff because of the category that they're in, I have developed a method to provide evaluation that has productivity, quality, leadership, et cetera, built into that they get annually, and that leads to then a determination of what % increase they'll be eligible for.
Okay. So you would do that personally then?
Yes, and make that recommendation. Technically, if the mayor signs off on those, so.
Thank you.
I guess the last one for me then. Are we increasing from the contract to the full-time? Is it the same number of people? We're going from 805.
That's a really good question, Counselor. We actually are increasing by 1 FTE with this plan, and we believe that's a prudent thing to do since we're still keeping, the general fund impact level. That lets maximize those resources, because that's one other way we can see more patients. So.
Okay, thank you. Mm-hmm. Thank you, Director Franken.
Yep.
Next up, we will have our librarian. I mentioned Mary Johns. Thank you.
Good afternoon, and thanks for allowing us to come and share our plans for 2014. I would like to start by thanking the Library Board for their support and advocacy in working through our budget, and remind everyone that the Library Board is made up of representatives from the City of Sioux Falls and from the county, as well as one of the county commissioners. This being a part of the joint merger and agreement that we have that resulted in Siouxland Libraries. And I'm happy to say that now Siouxland Libraries provide service in 5 city locations, as well as the 8 rural libraries and our children's bookmobile, our mobile app, and our digital branch. I also would like to thank our library staff for their contributions to the budget process, but even more so for their commitment to library service. It's extraordinary. And then I would also like to thank our finance and HR teams, particularly Ann Bowden, who is a saint in the budget process, and Jody Fick from our library staff. So we want to expand access to library services. We just did that a couple of weeks ago. Prairie West is an exciting place. If you've not been there, shame on you. It really is bringing service to a part of our community that has been waiting, and it's so heartening to see how grateful people are when we're just doing our jobs. But it opened to rave reviews, and so we thank you for your support of this project in previous years and bringing it to fruition this year. And we will continue then to expand those services and working with the school district and the neighborhood. Of course, we always strive to provide current and relevant material to our customers. It certainly would be a disservice if we weren't doing that. And we definitely have a long history of doing so in the library world. We've embraced all of the changing technologies that have come along over the course of time, and just in my lifetime, you know, there were 8-track tapes and those sorts of things that people today using libraries don't even know about. So we have been very flexible in making sure that what we're providing our customers is current and relevant. And certainly we want to provide fast and efficient service. And truthfully, it's in many ways less about the fastness of the service in and of itself, but rather the efficiency so that we can then employ our staff helping customers in a much more direct way. And again, we've been able to do that, which we'll talk a bit more later. And obviously, we're about promoting reading, learning, and discovery. Again, that's the basics of libraries and the history that we've carried forward for many years. And this year in particular, for 2014, we want to work on enhancing the early childhood literacy component of our offerings. So we plan on investing $7.5 million in 2014 to help us do those 5 things. The capital budget this year really consists mainly of the collection budget. This is all of the materials that we provide to our customers for checkout and use in the library as well. And then we do have a small piece included in our budget to add a piece of equipment called a digital scanner, which is really like magic. It will do virtually everything. You can scan, print, send to your iPhone, take off your iPhone and print. It replaces a fax line. So it's a printer, it's a copier, works with your smartphone, your tablet, USB port, and we're excited to provide that service because we do have a lot of people who use those services and need to fax, and fax is quite honestly an old technology. Our operating budget includes $5.5 million for personnel and $1.3 million for other operating expenses. And as you all know, obviously, we are a public service agency, so personnel is our greatest asset and where the majority of our budget goes. And we believe, and I certainly like to tell people, that we have an excellent staff that provides high quality of service. And I think that if people stop and think about it, we're all getting a pretty good bang for our taxpayer buck in terms of what we spend on personnel and out of the taxpayer dollar. And the efficiencies that we gain from the technology that, again, you all helped us promote and implement this year, we end up with a much stronger service element to our customers. So as everyone else's budget has represented, wages and benefits are the primary piece of our operating budget. We have some inflationary adjustment, of course, because things like fuel and cleaning contracts and snow removal increase. And certainly some of our service-based volume increases have to do with adding additional cleaning contracts. We're now, instead of having our staff in some of the rural locations, quite honestly, clean the bathrooms, we are having contracted cleaning services help with that, which seems to me a very significant improvement for our staff. We have one major true-up this year, which accounts for the majority of the $94,000, which was a roof replacement for Ronning, and that project is currently being completed. So Ronning is up to par now. We've done a considerable amount of upgrades to the Ronning branch, and we're very committed to making sure that all of our facilities are in fine shape. And then, of course, part of our increase will be Prairie West for a full year. We actually had intended to hire staff earlier, but because we were able to transfer all 5 of the full-time employees from other departments within our system to the Prairie West branch, we actually implemented those positions later in the year. And so we will have then a full year of Prairie West staffing for next year. And then our initiatives include the early childhood education. And we are planning to implement this based on a program called Family Place Library. And this is a program that's been a national program for a number of years. And it specifically operates on the basis that a parent is a child's first teacher, but that libraries play a primary role in helping that parent do exactly that. And we do this really in partnership with the school district in the sense that we are helping prepare those children to be able to not only be ready to read, but be ready to learn when they reach school. And we already know that there are issues with the ability for all families to have the preschool education opportunities that everyone in our community should and deserves to have. We also, another initiative is called computer PC reservation. It allows us to manage the time blocks on our computers, and blocks in the sense of the amount of time that you're able to register to use the computers, and print management. The current system that we use is at end of life, and the company is actually probably not going to be around later. So we'll be going out to purchase a new software program. And then we want to do a space study at the Cayley branch. Clearly, we all know Cayley has been a very, very busy library for a long time, and it's tired. And there are a number of improvements that need to be done, and we've looked at that with facilities. But rather than make those decisions, we would like to look at Cayley from a broader angle so that we can make the space more usable for the customers and the staff, and to make some adjustments based on both the use and the technology that's available to make us more efficient. And then we have some landscaping upgrades and additions that we want to do at our locations as well. The current and relevant materials, just to add a note about that, we are aiming to be a little more than average on that. We've done a study, and the benchmark libraries in our region that we compare ourselves with, we're just a hair below average, so now we're in hot pursuit to be average or exceed that because we think our customers deserve that. The efficiencies that we've gained in service are truly unrealized completely at this point, and it will take some time, but right now we have made a number of changes that have allowed us to open Prairie West with 2 fewer new hires. We hired 3 new folks, 3 new positions, even though we transferred around. We have 3 new positions as opposed to the 5 that we originally had planned because of the efficiencies that we've gained. Just earlier today, I was talking with our circulation manager, and while we're moving an incredible amount of materials between our locations, we have staff that we now are placing in other work areas to provide direct customer service. So we have people who were normally handling books, because if you'll notice, this slide is the one that shows the 11-bin sorter downtown. And again, if you've not been to see that, please come. When customers return their items, they go onto a conveyor belt, which checks it, then there's a reader that checks the item in, resensitizes it, takes that item off your record, sends the item down the conveyor, and it's programmed to sort it into 11 different bins. We have 2 different sorts set up right now. So we're sending a whole lot of materials into bins and handling them many fewer times. So we're able to have staff work in children's services, help with programming that before we weren't able to do. So once again, we're very grateful for your support of that piece of the big pie. Of course, we're about reading, learning, and we like to say discovery. And we do this really aimed at 3 age groups. The adult programming has really increased in the last several years, and staff are doing a wonderful job. Part of that comes as a result of a lot of technology that people are finding themselves faced with in the world in terms of e-readers and so forth. And where do they go? The very place they should go. They come to the library to have us help them not only utilize that piece of equipment, but also to use the resources that we have, because we do provide a significant number of electronic resources for people to use. And you know, we've learned that you don't stop learning just because you are getting older. So we wanted to make sure that we were providing that lifelong learning experience and upping the programming for our adult community. And then, of course, teens are an interesting group, in case we don't remember what it was like to be a teenager. And so we try very hard to find ways to meet the teens on their terms. Teen programming has gained great attention nationwide with the advent of lots of technology, and teens are now identifying for us the kinds of services and needs that they have. So we have teen advisory groups that help us determine what kinds of programs and materials they want, as well as a side benefit of that is that we end up with some pretty spectacular teen volunteers from that group, who then, as this next year, will be working on some mentoring programs with the teens, reading with younger students, which is always an interesting program. And then, of course, we have always spent a considerable amount of time aiming our programming at at younger children and families. And again, we've upped the ante on involving the families in this, and will continue to do so. And again, the programming numbers are off the charts, and the responses are excellent in terms of what kids gain from this. And the Reading Bridge tutoring program is one that already, at the conclusion of this year's program, the tutors and consultants were talking about how we could increase that programming next year, because we have so many kids that are interested in doing that. And then we also know that kids who don't read in the summertime don't do as well when they get back to school in the fall. I mean, it's not real hard to figure out. So it's important that we continue to work with our summer reading programs and work with the school district then to help ensure that the kids do make a difference in their scores when they get back to school. I did this last year and may continue to do this. This is a very small piece of the pie in terms of the value of service, but just to put this in a little bit of perspective, if we only talk about the number of items that are checked out and consider roughly $20 an item, that's over $40 million worth of items that were checked out from your public library. And that doesn't touch the kinds of services that we do, the story times, helping people manipulate the computers and do online job applications, help them use the resources that give them the information to get the best buy on a new car or a used car or whatever the consumer purchase might be, to seek health information. The databases that we have available to help people make those decisions and access the information is really pretty incredible. We will continue to promote reading, learning, and discovery, and we'll continue to use the efficiencies that we gain to more adequately and remarkably serve our customers. And we do that on a long-standing history. I read a quote just a couple of days ago of someone who commented about public libraries and the fact that they are an economic efficiency when you consider that our model of sharing allows us to serve many people with few resources. Who among us could buy that $40 million worth of resources individually and have that access? So I thank you for your support to help us deliver that service to the community of Sioux Falls. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Questions for our library director? Councilor Anderson, Jr.
Mary, we have agreements with our satellite communities. What is our responsibilities, our general responsibilities for those outlying libraries?
Yes, we do have. By the merger between the Minnehaha County Library System and the Sioux Falls Library System back in 1995, we merged those systems, so all branches are branches of the Siouxland libraries. We are all employees of the City of Sioux Falls. Minnehaha County has for a number of years had a dedicated tax levy for library service. So the monies that they collect, it's almost like contracting in a way for services, except that the money that they collect from the tax levy is quarterly deposited into the city coffers. So we provide service in all of those locations, given all of the services we provide. However, some of the local communities provide either the building because they own it or they lease the building. But we provide and operate the services is essentially what we do.
So we basically, if I may,
yes,
we basically operate those as they're one of our own libraries.
Absolutely.
So we're
Absolutely.
responsible for everything care and of that facility.
In some of the locations, they pay for the utilities because they either own the building or lease the building. But we do provide, now we're doing the contract service for cleaning in a couple of the rural libraries. Two of the libraries that are shared use facilities, those are shared use with high schools, and in both of those instances, the high school owns the building and we provide the service through the library. The Brandon Community Library is really kind of a three-way partnership in that it's a community library, it's a high school library, and we provide those services. And then the Hartford is also a shared use facility with a middle school and high school.
And one last one.
Yes, sir.
As Sioux Falls grows into Lincoln County, have we had any exploratory discussions with Lincoln County and maybe some of their facilities?
We actually haven't had formal discussions with Lincoln County, but I will tell you, just in the short time I've been here, I have fielded a number of calls from individuals in Lincoln County inquiring about the opportunities. And you'll also remember that with the merger, Del Rapids opted out of that merger, so we do not provide service in Del Rapids. However, just recently we were there to talk about the services that Siouxland Libraries provides. And interestingly enough, I will be at the City County School District meeting tomorrow to talk about Siouxland Libraries' library services beyond our borders.
Thank you.
And just for a point of reference, the revenue from the county library levy for 2014 will be $992,000.
Okay. Councilors, other questions? I have one or two, if you don't mind, Mary. Back in 2012, our personnel budget was $4.7 million. In 2014, we're proposing $5.5 million. And I know a year ago, roughly, we did the RFID to basically save on personnel. And I know you said we moved people from here and Prairie West. How many people have we actually added FTEs to the library staff?
2.
2. Okay, that was our net gain.
Because we actually had one position that we reallocated that had been vacant for a period of time. So we actually have gone from 65, I believe it is, to 67 FTE.
Okay. And I'm going to go way out on a limb here, and I'm asking you about the Cayley space study. What are we hoping to accomplish with that?
Part of that is that, first of all, Cayley is because of the addition and the age of the building, it's very hard to monitor both sections, which is sort of the children's and the adult, and we have the train tunnel going into the children's area. And so we want to look at more effectively utilizing that space, both in terms of those departments. Can we open this up? Can we implement some technology? The area, certainly the staff area, where we do have the circulation and the check-in, that is so oddly shaped and is small that we've beat up the walls. We have people on top of each other. We tend to be, it's sort of like being in your home. You have furniture in a particular location and you get used to that, and so you don't see how you could do it differently. And part of that is the piece here. We all look at it, but by having fresh eyes come in, not only can they help us with the space utilization, but also looking at things like lighting and efficiencies.
How much of that 87,000 is going for that space study, do you know?
The space study is about 16.
16?
Mm-hmm. And that would include, suggestions for furniture, fixtures, and equipment.
Okay. The Cayley Library, and this is where I'm going out on a limb, is somewhat of an anomaly in our library system. It's not in a residential area. And I've often wondered, we have bike trail access, but wouldn't we be better served by a library that would be on the south end of town, in more of a residential by one of our parks, that type of thing? Could we include this in that study to see if our Cayley Library is best serving the needs of our citizens?
I think that's an excellent point, because there is a certain amount of, if you're in a neighborhood and have easy access, we're trying to get to residents. And so there is a greater opportunity for people to do that. You do need to have clearly, traffic patterns that support that. But I think that's an excellent question, and quite honestly, that would be one of the first questions that I would also want to look at as we looked at that piece. Because I think there are certainly some options. And we do have to keep in mind what the growth of the community is, and that we do have some opportunities, I think, to look at that.
Well, if you look at that and you find you need more, I guess I'd like to hear about that, just to include that as part of the study. So,
excellent.
Any other questions? Thank you very much, Mary.
Thank you.
Councilors, we've been at it about 2 hours now. We have fire rescue and the entertainment tax. Anybody want to take a 10-minute break, or do we want to move on? I guess we're going to move on. Chief Sedaris, fire rescue.
Jim Sedaris, Fire Chief. I was kind of wondering if you're going to take a break. For overview for Sioux Falls Fire Rescue, our job really is to protect the citizens of the community and their property, and we do that on a very regular basis. We run about 10,000 calls a year. This year, we're at, year to date, we're at about 7,100, so we'll break last year's call for service. We also provide education, which we'll talk about a little bit, fire prevention, and then emergency management, actually going out there and doing the business. And what we're doing is we're looking at an investment of $26.6 million for our budget, which would include both operating and capital. And I'll talk about each of those as we go through this. Our one big capital project will be the fire station number 11, which is on Maple Street and Valley View Road, which is on the northwest part of town. That town is growing quite rapidly. We've looked at that for a projection for a station for a while. It will open up in 2015, and we'll be hiring 15 firefighters for that particular station. That's also, if you haven't been out there, that's right next to a school, and once that school opens up, that area will continue to grow. For our operating budget, we have 23.2 million, and the majority of that is obviously in personnel costs. We have 194 people. We do have an increase in that, and that's related to both the new contract and then step increases for our personnel costs. And then for our operating budget, it's going to be 2.8 million. And I'll talk about that operating cost now. What we're looking at, our original budget for 13 was 21.6 million. This year it's going to be, we're looking at 24 million. The changes are wages and benefits. The wages and benefits also includes 207,000 for the 13 projected retirements that we're going to have in 2014. For our inflationary rates, which is at 65,000, 31,000 is for technology changes. For the increase in, we bought tablets and monitors in 2012. We have $20,000 for uniforms, and then $14,000 for the New World Maintenance Agreement. The New World Maintenance Agreement is what runs the whole computer system for dispatching and data collection. We also have our service-based volume, and that is $7,000 for our software licenses. We have a number of licenses on the department for different programs. And then we have a true-up, and to explain this true-up, although it's $648,000, 600,000 of that is for a self-contained breathing apparatus grant. There's two standards which we use for our masks that our firefighters breathe with, and we need to update our masks. We have a grant for that, and so $480,000 of that, $600,000, is revenue neutral because of a grant. So the net impact to the city will be $120,000 related to that grant. We have $21,000 for uniforms for retirements, $17,000 for vehicle repairs. And what that vehicle repairs does is it extends the life of our vehicles longer. A lot of our fire trucks, normal departments will run them at 15 years. We're getting up to 18 years for our trucks, which benefits the city and keeps our trucks on board longer. And then we also have $10,000 in service maintenance for as our buildings age, roofs, floors, and siding. So that's $10,000. For our initiatives at $116,000, what we're asking for is one fire inspector. One of the things we're looking at is we can't keep up as Sioux Falls grows to inspect all our buildings. So we're looking at another fire inspector. Again, we have to also inspect all the apartments. And then with the change in the fire sprinkler system that will probably come up tonight, we have to be inspecting those. So that is $93,000. 83 of that is wages and benefits. $10,000 is for the operating expenses, computers, radio, and all the gear that they're going to have. We have also on our initiatives, we have $14,000 for concrete repairs, specifically at Station 3, 5, and 8. Our trucks really chew up the concrete, so that's just part of the maintenance on those. We're doing Station 9 right now. $2,000 for equipment training to repair our own self-contained breathing apparatus, which benefits the city because we can do all that in-house at $2,000. And then we have $7,000 for wireless internet. Once we do now we're allowing our inspectors to go out in the field with a tablet. They just need that wireless connectivity to be able to do it right on site. So that comes up to the $24 million that we're asking for. When we look at what we do, We respond to 90% of our calls in really under 5 minutes and 12 seconds. The 512 is what's required for our accreditation. In 2011, we were at 504, and we're bumping up to that, but now that we're looking at another station, and that helps drive our stations, with Station 11, we're going to keep that down in that 512. And then with building inspections, we've been about at 7,500 building inspections a year. We need to bump that number up, and with the additional fire inspector, we're going to be at 8,000. Now, it's going to be a little higher in 15, but this first year for that ramp up for that new inspector, they won't be able to do the production as fast as other ones because they have the training cycle to go through, the certifications to go through. So that's where we're looking at 500, but we're expecting that to go higher as once they get trained up. And we'll probably have to realistically be looking at inspectors on a regular basis of being hired just as the growth of the city continues to grow and we get bigger and bigger businesses into Sioux Falls. And then what we also do is we help drive our insurance costs down by maintaining our ISO rating of 3. We've been a 3, we'll continue a 3 through 14. Probably won't get down lower than that until we open another station to get the times down and the equipment down. So that's a ways away yet. And then we want to maintain our accreditation status. We've kept our accreditation status. This year we're already looking at a site review. What they do is they'll bring a team in and they'll go through everything from top to bottom, look at all our books, equipment logs, training, to determine if we are meeting what we're saying we meet, and also that we're the gold standard for a fire department. Less than 200 departments across the country are accredited, and we're one of those. And then we also provide education. That's one of our goals, is to be looking at how do we save lives and keep people from getting into trouble. One of the things we do is CPR education. Sioux Falls has probably one of the higher rates for survival from a cardiac arrest than any other city in the country. And one of the reasons for that is both our aggressive CPR accreditation, or our CPR training, and also all our public access DFibs throughout the city that are being used on a regular basis. So we're consistently around 3,000 people trained. We're looking at next year, our goal is 3,200 people for CPR. And we've done some pretty unique things this year. We even tried doing it out at the mall. We trained 600 people out in the mall just in learning CPR. And then also we train all the K through 5 kids in the school system, both on what to do in a fire, prevention, how to call 911. Some kids don't even realize what's going to be asked when they call 911, so they actually mock up on calling 911 and ask the same questions that a child would have to do in an emergency. So we continue to do that through the school system. And really for ours is fairly easy. I do want to thank Pat Warren. He's our division chief in charge of administration, and also Krista Stussy, who's our financial analyst with Tracy's team, and they've been working together, and our budget's almost a machine that moves all the time, and they keep track of it, and it's working very well on ensuring that we don't get too far out of bounds on our budgets. But I can answer any questions that you might have.
Councilor Jameson.
Chief, on the CPR training for the kindergarten to 5.
That's not CPR. That's the CPR training is separate from the
fire education. I'm sorry.
Correct.
Okay, the CPR. Where do you provide that training?
What we do is we provide it in locations. So we actually have one person that's dedicated to train people in CPR. We'll do it everywhere. We do it in stations. We'll go out to businesses. We'll have events in schools. Pretty much wherever the public wants to have it, we'll go out and do that.
They can just contact you, and you'll come to their business or wherever.
Correct. If it's nonprofit, we don't charge. If it is a profit, we do charge, for depending on what's involved with that. And we do have different levels. Healthcare providers, doctors and nurses that have to have CPR are trained at a little higher level than a layperson.
And then just sitting listening to you talk, it reminded me of Fire Call.
Yeah.
That show that used to be on. Whatever happened to that?
Fire Call is no longer on.
That was a good educational tool.
It was a good educational tool. Rich Murphy's over there. He might be able to answer it better than I can.
Well, let me ask you this, Chief. I guess what would it take to get that back on? Is that up to you? Or
I'll look at Rich.
It's did a great job.
It's not up to me. It's a combination of departments. That's Media Services, Central Services runs Channel 16, and they dictate what programming is the best, what works for them, and it maybe just didn't fit in the lineup or didn't reach the population base. I just don't know.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Rolfing.
Yes, I've got a couple, Chief. I noticed that in 2014, your sick leave and, was it sick, or part, no, it is sick leave. Your sick leave and benefits went up dramatically. Can you help me understand that?
In which year?
For 2014 budget.
I would have to look.
Okay, went up 413% from 50,000 to 256,000.
I would have to look unless, I don't, oh, the retirement payouts. Because
retirement
the number,
payouts.
Thank you, Tracy. The retirement payouts.
That'll do it. That's all I need to know on that.
Thank you.
And then I'm also assuming that your supplies and materials about doubled to $1.4 million, and that has to do with supplying the new firehouse.
Yeah, the new fire station.
Putting new things. They're not understanding, but
Oh, the SCBA, that is a grant. That was a $400,000 grant that we got. It's $600,000, but we had it's $600,000, but we did get a grant for that of $480,000. So that will offset that. So it'll be $120,000 will be the impact to the city.
okay, what's the?
Oh, with the equipment, that's for our masks that firefighters use to breathe air when they go into fires. We're going to have to redo the
Okay,
entire
that's
group.
that mass thing. Okay,
Correct.
Good.
Thank you.
You explained that. It just showed it didn't show up as.
Okay.
I was kind of thinking it was you got to put toilet paper in the new.
No.
But that was a lot of toilet paper.
That's a lot. 4-ply.
Yeah, that's even for you guys, right?
Councilor Aguilar.
Chief, how many inspectors do we have right now, and what type of credentials do they need to have in order to be hired for that type of position?
That's a really good question. Dean, do you want to talk about the credentials? Dean Lanier is our fire marshal, and he'll know all about the credentials and the numbers.
Our process in hiring, because the folks that are in operations are first in line for the hiring process, we take them through about a 6 to 8 month training scenario. They will get training not only out in the field on doing inspections, but they'll also attend both local training with specialists, and then we'll send them off to the National Fire Academy to get additional training. So in essence, it's about a 6 to 8 month process that we take them through. They initially test to make sure that they're qualified to even be in the position in the first place, and then we give them carry-on training from that point forward to get them up to a point at which they're capable of operating in almost any environment by themselves.
So how many do we have right now?
Right now we have a staff of 7 inspectors. They do principally a number of different tasks. They wear about 3 different hats. They're not only the guys that go out and do the men and women that go out and do the investigations for fires that we have, but they're also the ones that deliver in-class education to K through 5, and they're also the same folks that go out and do all the inspections of those commercial buildings in the city. So it's a 3-head monster that each one of them take care of.
Can I ask one more question then?
Please.
Typically, what kind of person applies for that job? Is it a firefighter sometimes, or building inspector? I mean, I just guess that I don't.
Principally, we have fighters that apply for it. We've been fortunate within our city contract for our firefighters. We have the capability of, once we get past the point of which we've offered tests, and folks have either not have any interest from our operations side in the test or did not pass the test, we're able to go out on the private economy and find folks. We've been very fortunate to find some firefighters that have been released by other cities that we've hired here as fire inspectors.
Great. Thank you.
Councilor Anderson Jr.
Dean, don't leave yet, please. My question is going to come out of our sprinkler task force. One of the things that came out of that was that we don't get to inspect private fire hydrants. And we've been looking at ways to try to do that. Have we come up with a way to survey these private hydrants, and what would be the cost of that, and if that's in our budget?
I would tell you, Councilor Anderson, we do inspect those private hydrants, but we have to go through a long process to be able to do that. I've got a very large 3-ring binder on my desk for every single private hydrant within the city, but to say that we're continuously testing them at the same that we would what we operate from our own water distribution would not be an honest statement. So we do get around and test those. We do have to go through a long process to contact a private business owner or the property owner to test those. But it's a long, drawn-out process to make that happen. And so it takes some time.
Is there any active programs maybe in another city that we could look at to expedite this process?
I think the best, we had actually a pretty good conversation between myself and engineering today. Our long-term goal is to really, through attrition, wane down those private hydrants to the minimum that they absolutely have to be. So it'll be a long process. It's going to take a long time for us to get there, but we think that's the best strategy for the city long-term, for the best benefit of the community, to, through attrition, wane those private hydrants completely away.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? I have one, if entertain me, Chief.
Sure.
Our new building out on the west end on Maple, and I'm sure it's in the book, but I don't have it in front of me. How much of that's equipment, and what's it costing to build the building? How much of that's going to fire trucks? How much of that's going to building?
I would have to look, but a truck is usually about $500,000 to $700,000, so you can take that off. And then the building, I don't know if, I would have to look it up. I just don't have the number off the top of my head for the building. I don't know if we have the number down.
Okay. If you don't have it, we did budget for both building and fire trucks, I'm imagining. So at one time, the council got a little heat for not budgeting for installation of windows. I just wanted to make sure.
Putting in radios.
So.
Construction is 1.97.
Okay, thank you.
Equipment is 64.
The building cost is $2.2 million, and the truck is $965,000.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Tracy.
Other questions? I think we're in great shape.
Great,
okay.
thank you.
Thank you, Chief. And our last agenda item is on our entertainment tax, and Director Turbach.
Last but not least, right?
Exactly.
Good afternoon. Tracy Turbach with the Finance Office. 2 weeks ago, I had the honor of kind of kicking off this annual process of budget presentations to the council and to the public, and tonight I get the pleasure of wrapping things up. I hope you all have had as much fun as I have along the way and listening to the presentation. A lot of good stuff here. We do try to provide a good, you're laughing. We do try to provide a good balance of highlights and summary information with details and without trying to overburden you with too much information, but it truly is just a monumental effort to get all this information together, and certainly we have to make some decisions along the way about what's presented and what's left out, but we certainly always welcome your questions and inquiries and look forward to your next work session to kind of follow up on any details and questions that you have at that time as well. 2 weeks ago, when I did give the overall kind of overview on the budget presentation, I did touch on at a very high level the entertainment tax fund and how those dollars are used. In the last week, of course, Larry Toll was here from the Washington Pavilion, and we delved a little further into that. And based on some questions and comments we heard, we took the cue and came back this week with a little more of a presentation on the entertainment tax fund. I've also asked Terry Torkelson to be here. Terry, as you know, is the general manager for most of our event and entertainment venues that the city has. So he's available to ask your questions or answer your questions that you might have for him. The entertainment tax fund budget for 2014 as proposed is $8.4 million, and our fund revenues that will be generated from our entertainment tax is about $6.3 million. So we're budgeting to spend considerably more in 2014 than what we will take in from our entertainment tax. And the difference there is that final bond payment that we'll make next year on the entertainment tax bond. So that'll be about $2.1 million, and that essentially will be funded from our debt service reserve that was set up when the bonds were originally sold. So that last bond payment is really made out of funds that have been sitting there and just waiting for that final payment to become due. But the rest of the budget, the $6.3 million that remains, is made up of operating and capital funds, and that is entirely offset then with the entertainment tax revenues that will come in. Looking at the entire operating and capital budget of $6.3 million, you can see how it's allocated out among the different venues. The Washington Pavilion accounts for half of that $6.3 million, and what we call the event complex, which is the term we're using to describe the event center, the convention center, and the arena out at that campus, accounts for 44%, or about $2.8 million in next year's budget, and the Orpheum is the final venue that we include in this fund, accounts for about 6%, or about $400,000. As I mentioned last week, Larry was here, and you had an opportunity to talk with Larry about the pavilion. But this week I want to focus a little more on the event complex and the Orpheum Theater. And one thing I think it's important to point out and to note is that 2014 will be the first year that all of the city's entertainment venues will be funded through the entertainment tax. So several years ago we started a transition process. At that time, some of the general fund tax dollars were utilized to support the operation and capital spending, operations for some of these entertainment venues. And so we started on a process of transitioning the support for those entertainment venues that are really driving the entertainment tax to be supported by that same entertainment tax that they work so hard to generate. So 2014, you'll see no general fund dollars going to any of these entertainment venues. They'll be entirely supported either by the revenues that they generate themselves, by operation of the facilities, or the entertainment tax dollars. Looking at the makeup of the events complex budget for 2014 in comparison to the current year of 2013, and again, the event complex is the event center, the convention center, and the arena. The operating contract is the amount of financial support that the city provides from the entertainment tax to support the operation of those venues. So the venues themselves generate a lot of revenues that go to pay the lion's share of the cost of operating those facilities, but until we get to a point where those two are equal or revenues actually exceed the expenditures, the city has to kick in entertainment tax dollars then to fill that gap. And that's what that operating contract number is. This year, we've budgeted $1 million for those three venues. In 2014, we're anticipating budgeting just a little over $200,000, so you'll see that decreasing by $800,000 from the current year to 2014. And so that's certainly a positive thing and an important highlight, I think, to take away in looking at the entertainment tax. I'm sure Terry would love to take credit for all of that. A reduction in tax support for those facilities, and certainly SMG is doing a terrific job. I think the fact that we've gone to one management company versus two for two different facilities has a lot to do with that. I think that was just a very good move on the city's part to consolidate the management of all those facilities under one company, and certainly the improving economy is reflected in that number as well, I believe. The other operating costs for the event complex expenditures are those things that the city covers directly out of our entertainment tax fund for the major repair and maintenance costs, the property insurance, there's some drainage fees and kind of odds and ends like that are paid directly by the city that are not part of considered part of the operating budget that SMG manages. And of course the capital, I think, is pretty self-explanatory what that is, but you can see that's changing slightly, reducing by about $100,000 from the current budget. So overall, we're seeing about a $900,000 decrease in the amount of entertainment tax dollars budgeted for the event complex. And last but certainly not least, the Orpheum Theater is an important part of the entertainment tax fund as well. and that is also under SMG's management. You can see that in 2013 we've budgeted $280,000 to make up that difference between their costs of operations and the revenues that they generate. And in 2014, that will increase by $62,000. The other operating here again are for major repairs and maintenance projects. And I believe we had I think it was a carpeting project, Terry, at the Orpheum. That was kind of a big project this year. And then it will fall back to more normal repair projects next year. So the Orpheum, you can see, is the total budget for the Orpheum is actually down about $18,000 from the $400,000 budget for this year. And then lastly, I just want to touch on some of the capital projects, the significant ones ongoing this year. Just recently, the bid was awarded to replace the convention center roof. That's a project that is somewhat overdue, I think, in terms of getting that done. You know, they've been battling some leaks out there for some time, and it's just it's good to see that project moving ahead now and getting that roof replaced. And also they've got a project that will be coming up yet this year to replace some of the plumbing, or redo some of the plumbing underneath the kitchen floor and replace the flooring in the kitchen facility there. Next year, the big project for the event complex is the parking lot improvements in conjunction with all of the parking surface area that will be redone and improved as part of the event center. There will also be some that will be done through the entertainment tax budget as well. These are improvements that have kind of been delayed for a number of years, waiting for the event center project to really come to fruition, and I think Terry is probably very happy to see these improvements in the parking finally getting done and in the budget. So with that, I will, between Terry and I'm hoping we can respond and answer any questions you folks have.
Questions from the council? Councilor Erpenbach.
Thank you. I know that that was partly my comment about the pavilion that got you to do this, and I appreciate it. And I didn't expect it, but now I'm really glad you did this, because I'd like to hang a huge banner somewhere that says, no general fund dollars are being spent on our entertainment venues in the coming year. No general fund dollars. So if you don't want us to spend dollars on the pavilion or the convention center or the Orpheum, then don't go out to eat, don't go to a movie, don't get a glass of wine. That's the money, the entertainment tax that's going to this. This is awesome. This is great stuff. I'm so excited. I can just, yeah.
I think it's a great milestone, and like I say, it's certainly an important thing to note, I think, for all of us.
Thank you.
Councilor Anderson, Jr.
Tracy, I thought we had some improvements to the kitchen in the event center plan, as far as we were going to, that kitchen is a joint kitchen, correct, for the convention center and the event center?
Well, the kitchen will serve all the facilities out there, yes.
And I thought the expansion of that kitchen was going to cover all the improvements there. So this one that you're showing with the floor.
Right. This is the project with the floor, and Terry can probably answer that more specifically than I can, exactly what's being done. But the plumbing underneath the existing floor needs to be redone, and as I understand it, they've got some issues with the existing floor, and how it was put in is causing some problems out there. Terry, can you address just what's happening in terms of the event center project and how that relates to the kitchen?
Thank you.
Terry Torkelson, General Manager of the Denny Sanford Premier Center, Sioux Falls Arena Convention Center, and Orpheum Theater. Glad to be here. The main reason why these are separate projects is they're actually, the convention center and the event center are two separate buildings. The part of the plumbing project that's being done is more of a code issue. It has to do with grease traps. It's something that's been planned to have been done anyway. And as that system flows through the convention center side, it doesn't flow into the event center side. That's why it's a leftover. The same with the floor. The floor is being redone because they get dinged on it every single time an inspector comes through, is because there's parts of the floor that don't meet code. So it's technically a convention center kitchen, and then the updates, a lot of the equipment was done this year, and there'll be some more FF&E items next year.
there is an actual addition to the commissary section in the event center. It's more freezer, cooler, and dry storage space.
Thank you.
Sure.
Councilor Aguilar.
What are our future plans as far as the arena portion of it itself? Are we doing any kind of maintenance or upkeep type of projects with that in the next couple years?
Yes, actually, it's one of the things that we've had to kind of shuffle some things around due to priorities, one being the convention center roof. So we'll be looking at doing some plumbing updates in there as well. With the usage, kind of transitioning more to a flat floor space, smaller shows, things like that. I think you'll see a lot less of our maintenance items. We've already done quite a few. We'll be doing a network upgrade as well as security upgrade in there as part of our FF&E budget too.
Can I? No, thank you. Will we be doing anything, one of the big complaints that I always heard were the locker rooms, and they were, I know that there were some upgrades to that, but will we need to have locker rooms still there, or will there be some reconditioning or reformatting of the facility itself?
There isn't a plan to do that at this time. When we do the combined boys and girls basketball tournaments in 2016, we will need those locker rooms. We're looking at doing, hopefully, that in the future. We've worked with the South Dakota High School Activities Association. We're working with other groups, so there may be other athletic events that wouldn't necessarily fit in the new facility that will be playing there as well. So you will still have the need for locker rooms, and they're at the point for a facility that size and that type that they're adequate.
Thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions, council? Okay. We will be adjourning our meeting then. 7 o'clock, city council meeting. Meeting adjourned.